Hi, so today we're going to talk about making an offer and how to make that look good for what you're trying to do. So there's all kinds of situations where you need to kind of put your best foot forward as a buyer to get that house. So three components of an offer. Price must reflect what the market is saying. Like, so your realtor will look at the different comps of the area, how it's comparable to the house you're buying, and help you create a price for that house. It's ultimately your decision as a buyer, but the realtor will help you with real market information to help you make an informed decision there. Terms. So, what are the basic terms? What's the timing? What is the what kind of financing are you getting? Do you want a survey? Do you need a survey? Will the lender require a survey? Do you want the title policy to include shortages in area that maybe the previous owner's title policy did or did not cover? What title company are you going to use? What date are you going to close? How far out from now is it? How many days do you need financing approval? So all those kind of things are going to come into play. It's a huge kind of list, if you will.
Yeah, it's a lot to navigate, which hence is why you must have an agent walk you through all these different specifics.
Option period. How many days is it? How much money are you going to put towards it? The one good thing, one thing is a great agent will help you with like all the different ways to maybe put your best foot forward, if you will, on making an offer. There also could be contingencies. So in a hot market, especially a lot of times in spring or hot markets, if you can avoid having a contingency, it's better. We understand they happen no matter what sometimes, but if you could avoid a contingency, that's usually an offer that's going to win.
Well, let's quickly explain what a contingency is.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
So
good
contingency could be something like you have a house that you need to sell and you're afraid to sell it until you find the next perfect home that you want to purchase. So when you're going to make the purchase, you say, hey, I'm going to buy your house for X amount of dollars, but that's on the contingency that I sell my property first.
Right.
And sometimes you can have a contingency of contingency of contingency, meaning the seller doesn't want to sell their house until they find a house that they want. Anyway,
we call that the domino effect.
But they happen.
We don't own it if we don't have to have it. Okay, so terms of making that offer. First is down payment percentage. How much money are you putting down? Different loans require different things. I think a conventional the minimum down right now is about 3%. It doesn't have to be 20 because some people think it has to be 20 to do a conventional loan. You could still get a conventional loan with only 3% down. And it could be anywhere from 3 to whatever percent. I wouldn't probably suggest going over 20 because at 20%, that's when your PMI or that extra tax drops off. And so if you could get it at 20, that's ideal. So conventional, then there's FHA, which is a 3.5% down payment. Minimum. There's also VA, which is 0 down. You have to have served our military. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But there is no minimum amount for that purchase either. So you could, if you were in the military and you want to get a VA loan, and even if you've used your VA loan before, you're still eligible to use it again. It's not a one and done thing. It's because you served our country. This is a program that the government has set up for you. So it will go up to any amount nowadays. So you could be buying a $1 million, $2 million house and not have to have a down payment. That's kind of how that VA works. But, in theory, most people are probably below $500,000 in our area. And then next is earnest money, option money. So you have option fee. That goes to the title company. Sorry, wrong. Earnest money goes to the title company. And that secures like, hey, I want to buy this house. I'm putting let's say the contract's $200,000, we put a 1% down on that, so that's like $2,000 in earnest money, and so we'll use that example: a $200,000 house, $2,000 earnest money to the title company. We don't get that. The realtors don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
The seller doesn't get it. I had a seller ask me today, where was the earnest money? And it goes to the title company. They hold it to get the policy started. And then there is an option fee as well. And that period of time is like an insurance policy to say, okay, buyer, you can back out for any reason you want, essentially. There is due diligence there. It has to be delivered in a certain time period. So, like, typically 2 days and 3 days in most states. And but check with your state. But it has to be delivered in that time before 5 p.m. Should you not deliver it, you automatically go into pending, which means you have 0 options in the option period. So there you go. Do it. Make sure. But that, it's a nominal fee, like $100. And
which, let me speak to that.
Okay,
it's been $100 for 20, 30 years now, and despite inflation occurring, that money hasn't gone up. So if you find yourself in a market where it's a seller's market, not a buyer's market, highly suggest you consider putting more money down to buy yourself that option period to walk away. It does tell the seller that you are really, really, really serious, and therefore if you decide to walk away, it's going to hurt. So anyway, just putting that out there.
Okay, there you go. Next is title policy. Title policy, the title company is going to ensure that your home is free of any liens and encumbrances. So it's going to, clear all the old loans away to make way for you to own that house, so you're not liable for Mr. Seller's tax lien or Mr. Seller's
vendor's lien.
Yeah,
you didn't finish paying off the pool that was installed. Yeah.
So, or whatever it is, but that's what title policy does. So even after you buy the house, if something comes up and they say you owe tax for, I don't know, 1999, well, of course you only bought the house in 2020, right? So you go back to the title company and they cover that tax in that situation. Then there is a survey on the property. Sometimes there is an existing survey, and you can use that for your purchase. Surveys are typically $400-ish, and it just shows the outside perimeter area of your house and the land you're on, and any easements or unknown encumbrances or easeway, whatever. It'll tell us anything going on. Or if there was a gas line we didn't even know about. One time I had a barn that was built across the property line. So we had to negotiate that. So that's what a survey's going to tell you, is everything exterior of the property.
Exactly what you will own.
Yeah, and what you'll own, and if there's anything kind of pushing in on that.
And you want to hang on to that, because now in the state of Texas, you can use the same survey from transaction to transaction. Should you decide to sell in the future, near or far, it used to be that required with every new transaction, you had to buy a new survey. And at some point they went in and said, no, we'll let you use the same survey, so you get an affidavit. But hang on to it. It's a valuable piece of paper should you decide to sell.
There you go. Okay, so property condition. Your offer's probably going to be contingent on what the property looks like. The more bells and whistles, the nicer it is. The better the property condition, probably the higher the sales price in that neighborhood they're going to get. If you decide you have spots on your carpet, your paint probably really needs to be painted, or maybe the dog kind of pawed at the wall and made a hole or something, and you think, I can give an allowance and the new buyer can just have that fixed. Well, typically I would tell you that most buyers can't figure that out. They can't see it. It's like, in my mind, the 80-20 rule. And 80% of the people aren't going to be able to go, oh yeah, it just needs paint and carpet, no big deal. But so I would fix everything up in the house you can prior to listing it. Home warranty. So if you would like, one thing we offer is that we give people a free home warranty when they list their house. That way it'll cover anything like Murphy's Law that might happen with a house. And also, it's good to get a home warranty as the buyer. And that's the seller saying, hey, look, Mr. Buyer, my house is really good. Shouldn't anything go wrong, I provided you this home warranty to, so you can get your dishwasher fixed, your water heater fixed, whatever it may be. That would not be for something like the sprinkler system, the ceiling fan, the roof. If there's a hailstorm, that's your homeowner's insurance. That's going to cover that. So,
major appliances and whatnot, water heater.
An AC unit. So within reason, so you'll know that. Then closing date. I would set that, typically, most people is 30 days. Depending on your loan, it might be longer. FHA, or rather VA, might take a little longer. Sometimes, no, it really doesn't. VA is just as quick as any other loan nowadays. There was a misbelief for a while that VAs took longer. It's not really true. So, you get to decide the closing date. All these things are negotiable between buyer and seller. So just talk, have a conversation, communicate with your buyer, with your buyer's agent, and let your buyer's agent communicate with the seller's agent. That's what we're here for. And then possession of property. This is a big one. We'll be at closing, and my seller, or buyer rather, will be like, oh, I have the moving truck outside.
Well, they sign all the papers, and they're like, where are the keys? But no, what is it we want to hear at every closing?
Funding. Once it's funded. It's upon closing and funding. So not just signing the paper, which is closing, but also funding. That means that the title company has sent all the papers you've signed to the buyer, the buyer's lender, to get the release of the money for that transaction. Once they've done that, then it's funded. That can take anywhere from, it could happen at the table. It could, but it's not very common. Yeah, but it could take hours. So you really would like to close not on a Friday, so you're not going into the weekend and having to wait till Monday. Probably set your closings up Thursday or earlier in the week. And that way, if anything, anything crazy can happen, who knows. But typical, it takes 2 to 3 hours for funding. Then you can take possession, unless you've agreed to something differently. Then closing costs. As the buyer, you're responsible for closing costs for your loan, typically 15 months of insurance, and 3 months of taxes. So that's going to be in an escrow account that the lender collects at closing. He's also, or she, is going to have an origination fee with that. So that's usually around 1%. So that's about $2,000 in that $200,000 transaction, plus whatever your insurance and taxes are for that. Make sense? There you go. And sometimes people want the seller to pay for some of their closing costs on the behalf of the buyer. So if that's the case, they may roll that in. Kind of hard to get closing costs, really right now, because we kind of have a tight market. So something to think about. If you come with your money, that'd be great. For the seller on closing costs, you're paying for your realtor fees, your title policy, typically. That's all negotiable. But title policy, home warranty, and broker fees is what typically the seller's paying for. So hopefully that makes sense. Hope you guys enjoyed making an offer. You got anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Thanks, you guys. We'll see you soon.